What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Thursday, September 5th, and sure happy it's Thursday, sure happy it's Thursday, sure happy it's Thursday. We have got a lot to talk about today. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Mike is in our control room, ready to answer the phone, put you on the air with your comments, questions, and observations. So before we get into the news, though, I kind of want to catch you all up on the situation that Claire and I are finding ourselves in right now. And we think we have located a place that we can afford to rent, and we're going to try and close that like early next week. And, the rest is just getting our container from Hawaii and resetting up my big studio where I've got all my tools that allow me to do the show the way I want to do it. And the reason I mention this is I'm going to have to issue an apology here, because when I set up this little Windows 10 laptop, I set it up to basically pull my email down from the two accounts I use. One is my production company, and one is the email for whatreallyhappened.com. And the idea was I was going to go through and reply to some of the email, but it was going to be left on the server so that when we got settled into our new place, I could go through it all and get caught up and all the thank you notes and everything like that. And unfortunately, since we left our home in Hawaii, I've received something like 6,000 emails, and our email server just overflowed. And I'm trying to clean it all out. But the reason I want to say that, I want to apologize up front for those of you who have not received replies to emails that you sent. And it would probably be a really good idea to wait until I'm back on my main system before you resend them. And of course, if you're an advertiser, just go ahead and take my name off of your mailing list anyway, because that was a big part of the load, as it were. So we're still dealing with the shpilkas of moving, but we are making progress, and I think we're going to get there very, very soon. Okay, so let's get into the news here. Obviously, the big news, Hurricane Dorian is battering South Carolina and North Carolina, flooding rain, storm surge, high winds, and it's even spawned tornadoes. And it's strengthened overnight. It's a Category 3. And, of course, all the authorities in the Carolinas are saying, take this storm seriously. Now, Florida lucked out, Georgia lucked out, and but the Carolinas are definitely going to get hit, and the worst impacts will be felt through tonight here. So, okay. Not everybody is lucky, though. It's kind of an interesting little story, because apparently hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of cocaine washed up on the Florida beaches from Hurricane Dorian. And I'm sure a lot of people are out there saying, party, party, time for a party here. And but I think the presumption here is that some drug mule decided to use the storm as cover, figuring DEA is not going to be out there, Coast Guard's not going to be out there. I'll just load up this boat with all this cocaine, and I'll just sail up there and make a bunch of money. And I don't think they made it. I think that's where that's coming from here. So everybody is out there trying to use Dorian for political points. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is out there scoring political points with it. Everybody's blaming global warming for it. Marianne Williamson is out there suggesting that everyone needs to use the power of their minds to change the direction of Hurricane Dorian. So this lady is a spiritual advisor and a Democratic presidential candidate, and she called upon her social media followers to channel their thoughts in order to use the power of the mind to change the trajectory. So it's getting a little weird out there. Speaking of cocaine, apparently Pablo Escobar's son has now admitted his father, Pablo Escobar, worked for the CIA selling cocaine. Anyways, I mentioned for everybody's using the hurricane to score political points. And I was watching the news, and they had this montage about all the Democratic candidates. They're changing directions. They're changing agenda. I guess they weren't really getting as much traction as they wanted with the race card or the LGBTQ card. So the new push is climate change. See, we have proof of climate change. We had the Hurricane Dorian, and the temperatures are going up. The Amazon is on fire. You know, life on Earth is coming to an end. And just this constant fear-mongering to sell the Green New Deal. And so that appears to be the new Democratic ticket going into 2020. Joe Biden was discussing climate change and apparently had some kind of a medical issue with his eye. So it's raising more questions. Is he healthy enough to run for office? So Buttigieg apparently is equating fighting climate change with fighting World War II. That's his spin here. And Bernie Sanders is out there saying that the United States should pay for abortions and birth control in poor countries to combat climate change. Well, Bernie, you're free to use your own money to do it, but I think for the rest of us, you know. Now, Kamala Harris wants government incentives to push Americans to eat less red meat. That's her solution. And I don't know why there's a war on meat. I mean, somebody came up and said, oh, it uses more energy and more this and more that. But, you know, we're not really evolved to be total vegetarian. And people on total vegetarian diets can get into some serious medical issues here. Okay, and let's see. I need to get something for our control room real quick. And get all these questions going here. And I've got this annoying little fly that keeps trying to fly into my nose here. All righty. And just excuse me. I apologize for the delay, but this was something that needed to be done. Okay, here we are. All right, so getting on back to the news here. So Kamala Harris is out there saying the government should incentivize us all to eat less red meat, which means they're going to tax the cows. Okay. All right, we're going to take some phone calls now. Jim in Illinois. Aloha, Jim. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Michael. Can you answer this question? When did Donald Trump become a weatherman?
Well, I think he considers it a perk of the job, but he's caught an awful lot of flack for that slight little edit he did to the hurricane map.
Right. Well, not only that, though, last week he was asking people, would it be okay to nuke the eye of the hurricane?
Yeah, that was a pretty stupid thing to say. I mean, every time this hurricane season is going on, there's always some moron going to stand up and say, well, we could nuke that sucker and just get rid of it that way. And, you know, hurricanes don't really work that way. They are monstrous storm systems, hundreds of miles across, and a nuclear weapon sufficient to disrupt it would probably take out several cities underneath.
Right. And the final point, you know, even though I did not vote for Donald Trump, I would never vote for the man. I don't have that much respect for the man, but my gut feeling tells me he's going to get reelected because the Democrats who I saw yesterday, they were embarrassing. And yes. I cannot vote for them. So I probably will not vote at all.
The Democrats are self-destructing. Biden is self-destructing. He's got all these gaffes that are just piling up on him, and they've all got these kooky, lame ideas like the Green New Deal. They can't come up with a real idea on how to make this country a better place. They're just out there pandering to the liberal agenda, and I do think it's backfiring.
Well, do you see any Democrat having a chance against Donald Trump, even though I know you're not very happy with Donald Trump?
No, I'm not. He's a disappointment. I'm not happy with Donald Trump. I think the Democrats may be desperate enough to try and drag Hillary back in.
Well, that would be a big mistake.
I would be very unhappy about that. Hillary coming back in is the only thing that's going to make me support Trump next year.
Well, tell me this then: if the Democrats, pick the candidates on the stage, would you not vote at all, or what would you do?
I would look for who's running as an independent, or maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll launch another campaign. I ran in 2016, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, say no more. And I ran under the slogan, he could hardly do any worse, and it sounds to me like that slogan still applies.
Right. And finally, the situation in England with the Parliament, it's almost like a joke. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen minute by minute. I mean, it's a mess over there.
It is. Corbyn betrayed Boris Johnson, and it is a huge mess between the Brexiteers and the Remainers, and the British people are getting very upset because they expressed their will through the referendum, and they're feeling like their government is simply not being responsive to their needs and desires.
Well, Michael, you know what, though? It is entertaining.
I will grant you that Parliament is a lot more fun to watch than our Congress.
Right. So, well, Michael, I'm going to let you go. You take care.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Steve in West Virginia. Aloha, Steve. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hi, Mike. I called in yesterday and talked to you briefly about the Duran. I've got two more quick things to talk to you about today. The first one is, yesterday, Dustin called back up after I called, and he gave like a rebuttal account about the Duran. And I want to point something out for Dustin. Dustin, the Duran does not do any investigative reporting. What they do, by their own admission, is they get up early in the morning and they read an amalgamation of articles that are released about stories during the day, and then they synthesize those articles and they come out with an opinion. That is not investigative reporting. True News actually sent people to Epstein's ranch with drones and interviewed all the local people around the area, radio show, the people that own the local radio shows out there, the stations and stuff. That is investigative reporting. The Duran, just like I said, all they do is they get up. This is by their own admission. If you listen to their kids, they get up early.
They're aggregators. They're aggregators.
Yes, right. Exactly. And I want to also point out the guy, Alexander Mercurius, who often says he's good sometimes, but he got disbarred for forging their Supreme Court judge's signature on a case.
That would do it.
He can't even practice law. Yeah, and there's a big article about it, and he pled guilty to it. So he is not, he's not trustworthy. And then Dustin mentioned Peter Lavelle, the guy from Crosstalk. Well, Mike, I can send you articles on a show where he on 2 occasions has told people that what we should do is get the Democrats and Republicans to pardon all the people that rape kids on both, committed crimes, started wars, raped kids, and we should pardon both all the parties and start over again. So Peter Lavelle, he may be an interesting guy and a nice guy, but he's a kook. So I don't agree with Dustin telling people that the Duran is good. Like I said yesterday, the other guy in the Duran has said that Epstein acted in his own interest. There's no intelligence agencies involved or anything. And the other thing is the Duran has got Trump campaign ads running on their website. So they're getting paid by the Trump campaign to, so they're not going to say anything bad about Trump or their handling of the Epstein case or anything. So I don't think they're a legitimate news source. Okay, so that's all I got to say about that. I don't think Dustin knows what he's talking about. Now, the other quick thing is involves Paul Craig Roberts. Now,
Okay.
Paul Craig Roberts said the key to this whole thing is when the dollar, when they no longer, all these other countries, and more specifically Europe, do not use the dollar anymore. When they do swap trades and use gold, and we're starting to see that more and more. Now, when that happens, eventually, when the dollar is not dethroned as the reserve currency, that means our monetary base shrinks.
Yes.
And why we still, it shrinks down to like maybe 20% of what it is now, because foreign central banks don't have to hold our dollar as a reserve.
Sure.
So what that means to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, they will still be able to print money like Britain can print money. But what'll happen is when they print money, we'll get inflation a lot faster and bigger.
Yes.
So when that happens, they will not be able to have all these military bases and all this military outlay all over the world anymore. And I think that'll be a good thing, because the only way they can do it now is by printing the money. And if they don't have the ability to print that amount of money anymore, they will not be able to do all these things that Alex Jones is saying. And they won't be able to have all these bases everywhere. It will crumble.
Yes.
And I'm hoping.
Well, it's already crumbling. I mean, look at the boondoggle weapons that are coming out of the military-industrial complex. They're expensive. They don't work. F-35, F-22, the Gerald R. Ford. This is just, supporting the defense contractors, but we're not really getting any bang for our buck. We're in a very, very bad situation to actually go into a shooting war right now.
Oh, absolutely. And then if you heard Turkey yesterday, Turkey wants to become a nuclear power. And the United States, I know a lot of these people watch the TV, and they believe what's on the TV about how great the United States is and how it can beat everyone. But the United States is not going to be able to keep these countries from becoming a nuclear power. They don't have the ability.
No.
And Mike, I'm a 6-year veteran of the Marines, and I got to tell your audience one thing. And I know we have a lot of veterans in the audience, but they need to go down and visit one of these clinics, like in Washington, D.C., like in the Northwest Clinic.
Yep.
You will see so many injured veterans that have, I'm not talking about minor injuries, I'm talking about very sick veterans that have multiple missing limbs. They have scars in their faces from RPGs and IUDs. And you think that
IEDs.
Think that if they go to IEDs. People think that if they go to a children's hospital and see all the children with the cancer and the shaved heads, and they'll be sickened by it and just emotionally turned down by it. You go to one of these veterans hospital and start seeing these veterans and start seeing all the service dogs, you're going to be way more depressed than the children. Way more.
Well, I would hope
these veterans.
I would hope instead of being depressed that they'd get angry. Because it was the government that's crippled all these people.
Yeah, and think about it, Mike. These guys are going in to fight and risk those injuries for a couple $1,000s a month. I mean, it's not worth it. It's better just to say, no, we're just not going to go. There's no threat. Iran doesn't offer any threat to my freedom here in the United States, so I'm not going to go fight you.
Okay.
Anyway, well, Mike, thank you very much.
I agree exactly the same thing with you. Iran is not a threat to me. I have done nothing to annoy them or piss them off. They've done nothing to annoy or piss me off. It's just all made up on the TV. This country's a threat. We must smash them. That country's a threat. We must smash them. Well, look who's doing all the smashing. Anyway, Steve, we got to let you go and take a break for commercials. Yep. So thank you very much for the phone call, and we will be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And again, a heartfelt thank you to those of you who have reached into your pocket to support the Republic Broadcasting Network, because without you, we will not be here. That's just the way it is. And we don't have any big corporate sponsors. We don't have any foundations giving us grants. There don't appear to be any rich people who have the courage to want to support getting the truth out there. I mean, they're always willing to give us a nod and a wink when they walk on by, and then they furtively keep going because they want to hang on to their wealth here. All right, there has been a new development in 9/11, and architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth partnered with the University of Alaska at Fairbanks in producing a draft report of a 4-year computer modeling study of the collapse of World Trade Center Building Number 7. And this was conducted by researchers in the university's Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering. Now, remember, when 9/11 actually happened, people were saying, we've got to preserve the evidence from all of these buildings, and instead the officials just quickly took all the debris and they got rid of it just as fast as they could. And the official story is that WTC-7 was the first steel-framed high-rise ever to have collapsed solely as a result of normal office fires. Well, that was your typical USDA choice government bovine excrement, because what the computer simulation shows, and it's something that we talked about here on this show back when it happened, fire did not bring that building down. It was brought down by the near simultaneous failure of every load-bearing column in the building. That's the only thing that could have brought it down into its own footprint. So once again, the evidence is putting the lie to the government's official story. I imagine it must be very frustrating for the government. They keep coming up with these wonderful little stories. Saddam has nukes, Assad has sarin gas, and in the good old days, they would have been believed. Today, nope. Turning to Iran, apparently the United States offered millions of dollars to the captain of an Iranian oil tanker currently at the center of a diplomatic spat. This was reported in the Financial Times and confirmed by the U.S. State Department. So the U.S. Special Representative to Iran, Brian Hook, emailed the captain of the Adrian Darya 1, asking him to sail the vessel to a country willing to impound it on behalf of the Trump administration. So Brian Hook started off his email saying, I am writing with good news, and basically offered to pay millions of dollars if he would return over the ship. The captain of the oil tanker, a gentleman by the name of Kuma, did not respond. And this isn't diplomacy. This is piracy on the high seas. The U.S. is apparently going to start offering bounties on the Iranian ships. And, of course, Iran is going to be very nervous about their captains, possibly being tempted to accept. And I imagine that the captain is going to have to placate his crew, possibly by sharing the millions of dollars. Anyway, Israel is said, once again, to be considering a raid on Iran. Let's go on in and bomb something really cool, like their nuclear power station. And apparently the reason Israel is mulling this is they're convinced that Donald Trump won't oppose this, unlike Barack Obama. And Israeli officials are considering the possibility of conducting a military strike on Iran with or without the permission of the United States. This was reported in the New York Times. They believe U.S. President Donald Trump could decide not to stand in the way of such an attack, unlike his predecessor. So, now here's the problem. Israel's going to attack Iran. Iran is going to counterattack, and then Israel's going to turn back to the United States and say, Mommy, Mommy, they're attacking us. And we'll get dragged into the war that way. Now, up in The Hague, the judges at the International Criminal Court ordered the chief prosecutor to reconsider her decision not to open a formal investigation into Israel's lethal attack on the humanitarian flotilla nearly a decade ago. This is the Marmara Marara, where these Israeli commandos boarded and seized the boats in international waters in the eastern Mediterranean, killed a bunch of people. One of them was lying on the deck completely under control. They shot him in the head. And a lot of people were very upset with this prosecutor saying, nah, it's Israel. We don't need to investigate. For anybody else, yeah, go to jail. But for Israel, we have to cut off some slack here. Over in Syria, apparently the Syrian army is preparing there's our music. Time for another commercial break. We'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Here we're talking about Syria, and apparently the Syrian army is preparing for a security operation in western Aleppo. And apparently back on the 3rd, Idlib militants carried out an attack on Russia's Maimim air base with armed, unmanned aerial vehicles. And according to the Russian Defense Ministry, the air base's air defense forces intercepted all the UAVs, and the attack caused no casualties or damage at the air base. So the attack took place just a few days after the start of the ceasefire, yet another one. Yeah, I wonder how long this is going to last. 5, 4, 3, 2. Ceasefire's over. And they're trying to demonstrate that despite diplomatic efforts by the Syrian, Iranian, Russian alliance, the Idlib militant groups are not very interested in a real de-escalation in the region. They just have an attitude problem is really what it comes down to. So back on the 4th, that would have been yesterday, the Sugur el-Sham brigades accused Russian special forces of attacking positions of its fighters near Ijaz in southern Idlib. The militant group said that 2 of its members were killed, 7 others were injured. Now, over in Turkey, Erdogan is starting to sort of crank up his issues, if you will, and he is threatening to flood Europe with Syrian refugees unless a safe zone is established. Erdogan is saying we'll be forced to open the gates. We cannot be forced to handle the burden alone, and demanding that European countries give political support to his controversial safe zone plan in northern Syria. In other words, Erdogan wants to carve off a big chunk of Syria and use that for the refugees, which, since they came from Syria, doesn't sound like that bad of an idea here. So Ankara is currently in tense negotiation with the United States over Erdogan's plan to militarily carve out a large swath of territory along the Turkish-Syrian border, which would serve as a buffer zone of sorts where U.S.-backed Kurdish militias could not operate. If you believe that one, I have some of Saddam's nuclear weapons to sell you. Erdogan said 1 million refugees could settle in the new buffer territory, thus alleviating the crisis on Turkish soil and ultimately for Europe as well. And I disagree, because we know that there are very powerful players that want the refugees in Europe, like George Soros. They want to blend the whole world together. So it's one population, one species, one private central bank, one slab of cement. That's what they dream of. Okay, over in Hong Kong, they've had these protests for months, and they got really ugly and really violent. Yesterday we were reporting on how the protesters were using a messaging app that works peer-to-peer and doesn't go through the internet, so they couldn't be silenced. But apparently Hong Kong's leader, Carrie Lam, has now announced she will withdraw the highly controversial extradition bill, which triggered the months of protest. And the proposal, introduced in April, would have allowed criminal suspects to be extradited to mainland China. And the bill was suspended in June, but Ms. Lam stopped short of just scrapping it entirely. Now, full withdrawal from the bill was one of 5 key demands for protesters who also want full democracy. And a lot of the protesters are saying Mrs. Lam's move is too little too late, and they're going to keep on protesting. So It's getting spectacular over there. Alrighty. Apparently, the U.S. Navy, Marine Corps, began Arctic war exercise to counter Russia and China. You know, that's the new battleground here, up there at the North Pole. You know, ice station zebra all over again. And the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps are conducting a month-long war exercise in Alaska against the rising threats of Russia and China in the Arctic region. I'm sorry, but from where I'm sitting, it's the United States that's posing a threat in the Arctic region. So when they talk about the threat to the U.S., Russia and China are trying to establish the Belt and Road Initiative in the Arctic by developing new shipping lanes that are now more accessible and commercially viable. So this is what this is really about. China's not coming to destroy us. Russia's not coming to destroy. It's economics. It's market share. That's what's going on here. So the U.S. must continue to show force in the Arctic and not allow Russia and China to establish the polar Silk Road. Ooh, horror of horrors, they want to build a road. Oh my goodness, how could we ever allow that to happen? A road, oh my goodness. Russia and China are building weapons which appear to be superior to the U.S. weapons. Like the Russian S-400, which Turkey bought rather than the American alternative, the Patriot. Russia and China still conscript their troops, the U.S. does not. And that's going to be a major stumbling block, because when the U.S. does bring back the draft, that's when the American people are going to really wake up and take that trip down to the Veterans Hospital and take a look at all these bloodied and crippled soldiers and say, what the heck happened? Why is this going on? Our military doesn't have the budget. They don't have the troop strength. We don't have the manufacturing. We're not going to have a positive outcome to a conventional war against Russia and or China. And if we're losing a conventional war, the temptation to take the war nuclear becomes that much greater. Alrighty. Up in Chicago, their mayor is apparently very unhappy with Ted Cruz for talking about the high degree of gun violence in Chicago, despite having some of the strictest gun control in the country. So what we have here is a mayor that can't solve the problem. Maybe doesn't want to solve the problem. She just wants everybody to shut the heck up. Don't talk about it. Talk about it in hushed tones in the booth in the back of the restaurant. We don't broadcast it to ordinary Americans. They might realize that gun control doesn't actually make things safer. Over in San Francisco, they have voted to declare the National Rifle Association a domestic terrorist organization. This is all about labels and illusions and propaganda. Now, the NRA does a lot of really good work. For one thing, they conduct gun safety training, which is something I think everybody needs to go through. Apparently, China and the U.S. are set to restart the trade talks. And the stock market really is being driven by the latest trade war news, headlines, rumors, and innuendo. So when they say, we're going to talk about it, the stock market goes up. When the calls are being called off, the stock market goes down. Here's an idea. Let's give China California and we'll take Hong Kong. That'll solve the problem right there here. Okay. Now, here is a good example of how left-wingers actually think. And we kind of went through this before when Hillary Clinton was out there on the campaign trail. And I'll give you the backstory on that in a little bit. But basically, these left-wingers were approached and asked to sign a petition protecting eagle eggs. And of course, they all rushed to sign it. Oh, yes, got to protect the eagle eggs, got to protect it. Then they were immediately asked to sign one protecting unborn babies to sort of illustrate the double standard. Now, by the way, eagle eggs are already legally protected. You touch one, you are in a world of hurt. One of the things about Indiana, a lot of eagles around here. But that's exactly the double standard. When Hillary Clinton was campaigning back in 2016, and she literally got up there and said, there is no constitutional basis for granting rights to unborn babies, and it was okay for the mothers to kill them at any point. This in a country where if you harm an eagle's egg, you're probably going to go to jail, if not pay a hefty, hefty fine. And see, this is that kind of inconsistent thinking, that going by gut emotion and not being logical, that has really turned, I think, a lot of America's voters off of liberalism. I really do think it is a bit of a problem there, because they're not consistent. It's always, whatever feels good at the moment, that's what we're going to do. We're going to sign a petition to save the eagle eggs, but we refuse to sign one to protect unborn babies. Now, don't get me wrong. I love nature. I think the eagle is beautiful. I'm going to try and get some pictures of them without harassing them, of course. But to me, humans come first. We are the premier life form on this planet, and that conveys with it certain rights, such as protecting our unborn. I think all these people who are running around screaming, abort, 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 these are people who really secretly hate themselves. And they're taking their self-hatred out on everybody else around them. So, anyway. Alrighty, apparently another liberal is telling people to stop wearing red hats because they become a symbol of hate akin to swastikas. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, goodness, goodness. No, they're not symbols of hate similar to swastikas. I know, I've seen a swastika before. That's not it. And apparently there was this couple that went to this soccer stadium, and they like to wear patriotic symbols. And so they had a Betsy Ross flag, which is the original Stars and Stripes with 13 stars. And the soccer stadium officials demanded the couple take it down or leave the stadium, because the Betsy Ross flag has now been declared a symbol for hate groups. Now, what is going to happen next? Are they going to declare that the 50-star flag is a symbol for hate groups because we're patriotic? I know they've already declared the Gadsden flag a symbol for hate groups. Oh boy, can you take one of those to a protest, you will get clubbed. So, alrighty, interesting little article from offguardian.org, and it says, if you want a vision of the future, don't imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever, as George Orwell suggested in 1984. Instead, imagine that human face staring, mesmerized into the screen of some kind of nifty, futuristic device on which every word, sound, and image has been algorithmically approved for consumption by the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency and its so-called innovation ecosystem of academic, corporate, and governmental partners. In other words, what they're talking about is real-time filtering of everything that is anywhere on the internet, on any of these devices, to make sure that you only get shown the truth, with the truth, of course, being defined by the U.S. government. Saddam has nuclear weapons. so forth and so on here. All right, we're going to take a phone call here from Joe in Harrisonburg, Virginia. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike, I called you from Brooklyn yesterday, but I'm on my way to Tennessee, so I'm overnighting here. It's a nice little place right near James Madison University.
Okay.
I just wanted to say I just got banned from Facebook again. And the one thing you really can't call attention to these days is transsexualism. And what I got banned for was I put an article about that religious guy confronting the trannies in Ottawa at the library, and how all the mothers of the children were like hissing and booing and saying arrest him.
Yeah.
And that's what got me thrown off for good. Then they wanted me to do a security test to see and send a picture of myself. So I just sent a picture of my dog, and that was it, because I figured to hell with it. I'm done with it anyway. You know, I used it to help get Trump elected, and Trump now has all the things, the tools that he needs to destroy the deep state, and if he doesn't, screw it, But I was going to ask you, maybe one day, I don't want to tell you what, your show, but, I think you have a lot of really, smart listeners, and I'm curious, what their favorite websites are, on the web, because I was talking to a friend of mine last night, and he gave me a couple websites I never even heard of, and I was like, wow, these are great, And, my favorites are Zero Hedge and Drudge, and The Truth Seekers is a really good one, and Rents and Steve Quayle. And I'm just curious, maybe Dustin in New Jersey and some of your regulars, what their favorite websites are, because I might want to put them on my list, and start, looking. I found one yesterday my buddy told me about called the Liberty Daily. And I've never heard of it, but it's kind of like the Drudge Report on steroids, same kind of a setup and everything.
Yeah.
And,
well, Joe, I need to cut in on you here. Here's the problem. If you rely on other people to tell you what websites to go to, you may find yourself being steered by deep state operatives to go over to websites that are controlled by them. You really have to just look at everything that's out there and decide for yourself what makes sense and what doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but there's some place, like I said, this place, Liberty Daily, I'm like, where have you been all my life? I just never heard of it, and it's just a buddy of mine I went to school with, and my whole point is, I can read stuff and make up my decision whether I'm being manipulated. But I just think there might be some great websites out there that I've never heard of. But like I said, I just think with the listeners you have, I'm kind of curious, what they like to read and where
All
they
right,
go.
Well, we'll put that question out there. Joe, we got to take a break for commercials, and I got to let you go. Another caller waiting on the line. We'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're going to go back to the phones here to Robert in London. Aloha, Robert. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yes, hello, Michael. Hello, Michael. Good afternoon. I had been to a meeting today, actually, and there's a chap who said that there's going to be a demonstration outside the Houses of Parliament in London on Wednesday, the 11th of September at 11 o'clock.
Okay.
To support David Noakes and Lynn Tyler, who apparently, so I'm told, have refined a human protein called the GCMAF, whatever.
Oh,
that
yes.
is, but it's to do with your immune system.
Yes.
Which apparently helps and cures cancer and autism, and they were treating people successfully, apparently, until their clinic was raided at gunpoint by the Medicine and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency in UK.
Yes.
And so David Noakes was arrested and put in prison for 1 year, and his friend Lynn Tyler had been extradited to France, where she's in prison, but held without any charge at all. And they want to extradite David Noakes to France, apparently. So she's awaiting trial, but she is innocent of any charges, apparently. And so apparently there's many videos on YouTube about it. I haven't personally seen any. But So there's going to be a demonstration next Wednesday, the 11th of September, to support them. Just to let you know.
Okay, and that's in front of the Houses of Parliament. And I know the big stink here is that GCMAF, again, it is something with therapeutic powers. Unfortunately, it's countered by another chemical called nagalase, which has been found to be included in vaccines. There's no legitimate therapeutic purpose for nagalase to be there. It just blocks your body from being able to manufacture vitamin D and opens you up to all kinds of diseases.
Well, there we go. So, so the good guys are actually the bad guys, apparently.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time in history that doctors have deliberately made towns full of people sick so that they could make more money.
Sure, sure. Okay, can I also just make a comment about your program a little earlier on? I support the Duran. I don't really support them, but I like them and I accept what they say. The complaint against them is perhaps true, etc. Obviously, not everybody is doing all the same things, and a lot of different people do different things in different ways. I personally like the Duran. I like what they say, and there was a complaint about somebody had said some really stupid things, which I can see. I would say much the same thing, not because I believe it, but because I am quoting. I am just pretending to be somebody else in my.
Okay, Robert, gotta let you go. Gotta let you go. Gotta do station identification. We'll be right. Thank you. Well, we'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. And before we got those phone calls, we were talking about this new paradigm where instead of looking at the real world and discerning what's going on, we're basically getting it all filtered and fed to us through our personal electronic devices. And it's a way of just putting blinders on us all. And if you have to be, my age to remember what blinders are for, you put them on a horse so they're not distracted by something they ought not to be looking at. And that's what these electronic devices are. They're the modern human version of the blinder, that you only get to see what your masters want you to see. And that means we're living in a soft dictatorship. All right, we have more callers on the line. Stuart in Florida, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike, how's it going? I just in response to Joe, I had a few sites maybe he was not, and of course other people they may not be aware of that are my top sites. It's, of course, paulcraigroberts.org.
Yes,
O-R-G.
yes, that's a good one.
That's a great site. There's the Saker, who sometimes he doesn't update it as much, but it's good to keep an eye on it. The Saker is the Saker, SAKER.IF. Yes. They have some good stuff. Of course, there's globalresearch.ca, UNZ.com, UNZ.com. That's a good one. And kind of like the Drudge, I could go through a whole list, but I'll just a couple of more. One good site, which is kind of like an advanced Drudge report, is Information Clearinghouse. And that's .info. InformationClearinghouse.info.
Yes.
And Veterans Today has some good stuff sometimes. Sometimes they seem a little off the wall.
You got to be careful. That's one of the websites where one of the guys who's running it has been outed as an intelligence asset. So you got to be careful on that one.
Talking about Gordy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Russian Insider is very good. They have a lot of good stuff.
That's a good one.
And then on I like to go to Sputnik News, when I just need to find out the latest what's going on. That's a good one. Fort Russ, RUSS, that's a good one. Yes. And not to take up too much time, on YouTube, Red Elephants has good stuff. I don't know, he's worried about getting thrown off there, so who knows? You may have to go to BitChute. And the Duran always has some good stuff. They have a lot of good insights. So, and I'll just finish with that. Then I don't want to take up the whole show.
Okay.
So anyway, Mike, good luck with your move. You're in a better place.
Yeah, I think so. I'm starting to really think so. Okay, well, Stuart, thank you for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Fred in Iowa. Aloha, Fred. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Websites. I'm going along with what Joe said. He said your callers were intelligent. Well, I believe that RBN callers in general, most of the time, are very intelligent. And you made the remarks that, well, it may be a government agent and something like that. That is true. That happens.
Yes.
But if a caller is so stupid and has such little discernment, they're going to believe anything anyhow. And I don't think, Mike, that you have a corner on the truth. And there's listeners out there that know things, maybe in the area of their expertise. And it's very, very valuable. There's more than RBN. Now, I'll give you one site. If I only had one site in the world, I'm going to give it to you.
Fred, I've never claimed to be the sole font of truth, okay? Let's just get that cleared up.
Okay.
All right.
Good. All right. If I only had one website, this is what I'm going to give it out. But I cover all kinds of websites, and I get led down some paths. But after a while, I figure it out. And my website, if I only had one, is amazingdiscoveries.org. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, Fred. Well, it doesn't sound like it's a political website. In fact, it sounds more like, I'll have to take a look at that. So let's bring up a web page and say amazingdiscoveries.com. And discoveries.com. Remember Amazing Stories? Steven Spielberg science fiction series. I got to work on that when I was a kid. All right, well, Amazing Discoveries. Oh, he said it was a .org. I hate this laptop. Yes, here we go. And I got to tell you, Windows 10, I'm not impressed. And let's see. So what is in here? AmazingDiscoveries.org. God's educational plan for the last days. All right, well, I think that tells us all that we need to know about this website. So, getting on back to other things. So we've already talked to Fred in Iowa, and phone lines are empty. So getting on back here to science and health issues, you have probably seen in the news recently about how there are deaths being associated with vaping. Now, vaping, if you're not already aware of it, is the use of these electronic cigarettes. And by electronic cigarettes, they're basically delivery systems for nicotine. Some of it's flavored. They're electrically powered. Some of them even recharge off a USB port. And when they first came along, they were considered healthier than regular tobacco cigarettes, which did not please the tobacco companies. So lately we've had all of these horror stories about people who've just died from vaping. And at first I was wondering if this is just a propaganda campaign by the tobacco companies, and maybe it is. Maybe they're taking advantage of it. But there is another factor. Apparently, black market providers have penetrated the vaping industry. And there are electronic cigarettes out there that are black market devices tainted with impure, illicit substances. So you have to be careful. And of course, it's all bad for you anyway. YouTube has been hit with a $170 million penalty for collecting data on kids. And apparently Google is accused of secretly selling user info. And right now, this is the good news. More than 30 states are looking at an antitrust probe. And I think it would be very good to see these tech giants that dominate and control and filter all of social media. I'd like to see them broken up. I'd like to see there emerge a new system, and we're probably going to talk about this tomorrow, where we go back to peer-to-peer. We go back to the original model of the internet, which is all of our computers are talking to everybody else's computers, and there are no gateways, there are no filters, there's no central command point to decide what gets through and what does not get through. Because that's when DARPA designed the DARPANet, that's how it was designed. It was designed to literally survive a nuclear war and keep working. And the engineering specification was that DARPANet could lose 1/3 of its entire structure, and the remaining 2/3 would still be working. And it was a wonderful time. And yes, it was a little bit of wild, wild west out there. But now they're trying to force us all to basically look into our little devices and look at the world according to Google, look at the world according to YouTube, look at the world according to Facebook. And I don't want to look at the world according to somebody else. I'm curious. I'm self-directed. I'll decide what I want to look at. Anyway, let's take another phone call here from John in Tennessee. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, welcome to the mainland. You are only 150 miles from me now, so we might meet in person at some point.
Okay, we might. Well, one of the reasons I did want to come here to the mainland is I do get invited to speaking engagements, but nobody's ever able to come up with the airfare from Hawaii. So now I'm located here in the heartland, and just about anywhere in the continental United States is just a 1 or 2 hour plane flight away.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, I'm close to Nashville, and that place is booming, so that's not far for you.
Nope.
No. I wanted to stick with your point, what you were saying about blinders.
Yes.
Because I thought this was very interesting. I mean, a lot of the guys were listing off. There's all these Russian websites now. Now, we have to admit, just a few years ago, were we not just all enthralled with Russia Today, and we all thought that Abby Martin was going to break out 9/11 Truth, or somebody was going to, like, we all thought Russia Today was hitting the third rail. But I got to tell you something, man. When Jesse Ventura started doing his own shows on there,
yep.
I mean, that guy was a Navy SEAL.
Yes.
I mean, don't tell me that guy's not a government asset. So the funny thing is, I was with a guy this weekend, and he wanted to watch on YouTube, like 1987 WrestleMania 3 with Macho Man Randy Savage and the guy from Hawaii. Was that Superfly or whatever?
You mean Dwayne The Rock Johnson?
No, it wasn't The Rock. It was the guy from Hawaii. I don't know, James Superfly something maybe.
James Superfly Snuka.
Yeah, that's who it was, and he ended up upsetting Macho Man. But the thing is, Jesse Ventura was ringside calling the match. And now in my older years, I mean, I'm totally jaded about professional sports. I think it's all fixed in Vegas. All of it is.
Yes.
We've seen NFC championships blown by referees. We've seen it all, and it's all gambling. So I'm listening, and I didn't want to watch this match anyway. I could really care less about wrestling back in the 80s. But I'm listening to him, and I'm like, he's calling a fake match. This whole thing is fixed. The referee got knocked out, you know, so there wasn't a 3 count. I mean, the guy got thrown out of the stuff was so bad. But Jesse Ventura was a color man for it. And then, like I said, now all it's Ron Paul people. We all got excited about Russia Today. Well, now today we still hear Patriot people going to Russian news sites. How do they not know It's still the blinders. The Russian sites are giving us only what the government wants us to hear, so they can have a managed society.
That's what
today never. Yeah,
Kev, I'm sorry, John. That's why you have to go to a selection of sites and see what makes sense. Now, as far as Jesse Ventura is concerned, I mean, he's always been about Jesse Ventura. He had his wrestling career, he had his movie career. We even had him on our show for a while, and now he's doing Russia Today. And is he being influenced? Probably. But that doesn't mean Russia Today is not worth looking at for other information that it provides. Take it on a case-by-case basis. Don't get in here and say, this website good, that website bad. You have to just look at what's being presented to you on a case-by-case basis and make your own evaluation. Trust your own analytical abilities.
Well, I agree. I'm just saying that, I mean, as much truth as people like us are getting out there, if they wanted to expose, I mean, Russia Today's got a big enough audience to educate people. And if we wanted to crush the Federal Reserve or get the 9/11 truth out there and put stuff out there that nobody can refute, it could have been done by now. But you can see it's still that rat poison. It's still 90% good food, but 10% rat poison, which is they bring you up to the line, but then they say, oh, not do anything about it. I mean, again, like Larry Klayman or now the guy at the Judicial Watch now, Tom Fitton. He's all tied up in knots that James Comey's not arrested. It's like none of these guys are ever going to get arrested.
Well, we keep up the pressure, and at some point something cracks, and it starts to come apart.
Well, I agree. I hope so. It's like I said, though. Like you said, you're right. Have our own analytics, but sometimes we can see they're still putting blinders on us. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Sometimes they won't hit the third rail. You think I thought Abby Martin was going to drop all kinds of 9/11 bombs. And
I thought Abby Martin was going to do it, but she's got a good gig and she doesn't want to lose it. And I'm trying to think of the other lady who just got let go from Fox News, and she's concerned she's going to be fired.
Well, and another point about Jesse Ventura, doesn't he proudly boast that he lives half of the year in Mexico? I mean, what kind of patriot does that? I'm just escaping the taxes. Well, I mean, seriously, okay, but all the other people that say what you say, they stay in the States. So the taxes are obnoxious, I get it, but Jesse, you're more of an actor than a patriot to me. That's what I see. I don't like that.
All right. All right, your point is taken there, and thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Kevin in West Virginia. Aloha, Kevin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
First off, I want to welcome you to the Heartland, you and Claire. Thank God you're here in the Heartland and not in Hawaii. That's a disaster waiting to happen. I think Hawaii is. But I wanted to talk about red flag laws and this new thing, this social credit score they're trying to tie with these red flag laws. Yes. I don't quite understand it, but at the same time, I kind of get it where they're going to monitor everything and then implement these red flags or red flag laws, on your posting and everything. Has me a little scared, and I don't think Donald Trump should be going along with this. And if he does go with this, and I know Ivanka, his daughter, has his ear with this, I don't think this is a good thing. I think my question is, if this is implemented, will his entire base turn against him? Because I sure will, if this is implemented.
I think he's losing his base already. I think he's losing his base. And the problem with the red flag laws, and even with this whole security credit score, which is apparently the coming thing, there are businesses who are doing this now, it's all arbitrary. There's no fixed set of rules. There is no constitution you can go to and say, what are the rules by which all of this is being done? And that is the biggest danger of all of it. There are no rules. It's anybody anywhere can say, oh, I'm very concerned about this person having a gun, and they come take your guns. No due process, no Fifth Amendment, no Second Amendment. And again, another indicator that we are, in fact, living in a dictatorship. And it makes us all the victims of anybody we've ever met who doesn't like us. For example, if you park in your driveway and you park so close to your neighbor's yard he can't mow the grass. Well, he can pick up a phone and say, this guy's got all these guns and he's dangerous. He's a reckless driver, and just there's no control. There's no restraint.
Do you feel this is how they're going to come, and not door to door, but do you think this is how they're going to confiscate with this social credit score and these red flag laws? Is that the gun confiscation that everybody's worried about?
I think they're going to try and implement that. The problem is we've had these recent shootings where these guys weren't supposed to have firearms anyway, and they still got them. And let's be very honest here, okay? If you want a gun, if you know anything about machining and woodwork and chemistry, you can build a firearm. And I know because when I was a kid, I did it, okay? And so if you ban all the guns, you're going to have another situation like Chicago where the gangs are just smuggling in the weapons and selling them on the streets.
I agree. That's all I wanted to talk to you about, Mr. Mike. I hope you and Claire have a great day. And again, welcome to the Heartland.
Thank you very much here. We're going to switch over to Tom in Florida. Aloha, Tom. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Oh, wait a minute. We got to take a break for commercials. Good day to you. Tom. Okay, hang on, Tom. We got to take a break for commercials. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're talking with Tom in Florida. And Tom, what is on your mind today?
Yes, Michael. Good day to you. Yeah, Michael. Yesterday Dustin called back in, and he used a word that I don't like. I don't like. It's like to me, it's like a cuss word. The word hate. I don't hate nobody. I think Dustin's an all right person. I think he's an all right guy. I have I don't have nothing bad to say about Dustin other than the fact his politics may be a little different than mine. But the fact of the matter is, look, if Dustin were to run for a political office in New Jersey, I'll donate him $25 to start his campaign off. Okay. So that's what I got to say to Dustin. I have no problem with Dustin. He seems like an all right guy. Now, the reason I'm calling you is about what I saw again today on TV. On OAN, One American News was talking about these illegal kids. All these Democrats keep saying they're in cages and all that. Well, there's 900 kids that have measles and mumps. I thought that was eradicated, but evidently, Michael, we have diseases coming in here. And this thing about the people who have been released into this country that you don't know what they are carrying, they're not really getting thoroughly screened like they were in Ellis Island, I don't even believe.
Nope, they aren't.
I think what's going on, I don't believe they're getting screened as properly as they should. Maybe the kids are, but I don't think the adults are. I mean, tuberculosis and all this. So that in itself, in California, Arizona, Texas, I mean, all these border states, they're going to be wiped out, either politically or who knows other way they'll be wiped out. But it's not looking good, Michael. It really doesn't look good.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, first of all, you have to look at the large number of these illegal immigrants who are sneaking across the border, who are never intercepted by the Border Patrol, and they just walk on into the cities and they merge in with the general population. And yes, we now have diseases in this country that have previously been eradicated. Scabies is out of control. Mumps and measles are out of control. There's been at least one case of bubonic plague. That's the Black Death, for those of you who don't remember that. And, of course, there's a growing concern about African migrants who are potentially could bring Ebola to this country.
Exactly. I mean, that's my point. I mean, and all these Democrats, they keep talking about gun control, the green. Look, Michael, the Green New Deal that all these Democrats keep talking about, why would they keep talking about it if they're keeping in all these illegals to come in here that want cars? How many cars are going to be on the road? How much more consumption you have for toilet paper and all the products that you're going to need, the plastics you're going to make for all these millions of more people that keep coming here? And they keep talking about a Green New Deal? Are you kidding me?
No, it's just an excuse to spend more money and to control your lives. And the Democrats aren't really going to implement any of these plans. The promises made during campaign season they're worthless. They're utterly, utterly worthless. And what's really going on is they're pushing that open borders agenda. They're pushing more draconian control over our lives in order to bring about this new world order, which is going to be this soft dictatorship everybody's talking about.
You're absolutely right, Michael. And you know, I look at the fact of the matter with these people is they're all going to have kids, offspring. Their kids are going to want cars. They're going to want houses. They're going to have to have toilet paper, soap, all these plastics. I mean, and they can't talk about a new Green Deal. What criminals these Democrats really are. Their criminal attitude that they have. Like the one caller you had in, they've never done nothing to Comey or Clapper or Brennan. Those people should be locked up and put in jail and the keys thrown away. They have committed
I'll settle for
this country.
I'll settle for a good coat of tar and feathers. It's more traditional, and run them out of town on a rail. Use a redwood rail. The splinters are really long. So, but yeah, none of it really makes sense. If you sit back and you look at what's actually being done, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. It is just election year grandstanding, and they're just pandering to to get as many votes as they can get. And now they're on climate change, and of course they're still pandering to those illegal immigrants who they're going to get registered to vote and vote even though they're not supposed to.
Well, Michael, one more thing I can leave you with this thought. I know a couple of Haitian guys that I was working with.
Yeah.
And you know what they told me? They would have never, ever in their life dreamed about owning a car in Haiti. They never would have dreamed about any of the stuff that when they came to Miami or South Florida, they never dreamed the stuff they could actually get a hold of. Okay? But when they're in Haiti, they never had an opportunity to have all that stuff. They come here and it's like a mecca to them.
Yes.
I mean, you can get a car. You got to pay for it. You got to get a job. But just think about these countries that these people come from. They never had nothing. Look at Venezuela. They had something. Now they don't have nothing. Most of the people over there can't even get medicine. It's unbelievable.
Well,
and that's what Democratic Party is.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's all I got to say. And like I said, I have no problem with Dustin. I think he's an all right guy. And that's why I want him to know. He don't have to use that word that he used yesterday when you're on your show about HATE. I don't believe in that. I may not like you, I don't disagree with you, but I don't have to use that word. To me, that's not a good word to use.
I agree.
I can have a disagreement.
I agree.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Have a great day. Thank you.
All right, Tom, thanks a lot. We're going to let you go here. And we are coming up on yet another commercial break here. And when we come on back, we're going to be talking again about social media and this push to control everything we're exposed to for political and commercial intent. We'll be right back. It would help if I unmuted the microphone. And get my clock back. I'll be so glad when I get my regular setup back. Okay, we're talking about the blinders, if you will. We're talking about how the lords of social media have now taken it upon themselves to decide for you what you will see and what you will not see. A lot of it is political. A lot of conservatives are being shut down and silenced. But there's also commercial intent there. And apparently Facebook, if you do a search for information on vaccines, it will direct you to so-called educational sites. Okay? Meaning the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and various other pharmaceutical companies. This is also going to apply to Instagram, which is owned by Facebook. Now, there is a direct conflict of interest here. The CDC is not part of the U.S. government. It is a private corporation, and they own patents on something like 30 different vaccines. And that's why every year the CDC comes on out and it makes that list of mandatory vaccines longer and longer and longer because they're making money off of it. And they don't want you to know that the vaccines may not be effective. They don't want you to know the vaccines could actually be harmful. They just want your money. And so clearly they have come into some kind of an arrangement with these social media companies to make sure that people searching for information on the efficacy and safety of vaccines aren't able to get that information. You're not allowed to know. You're not allowed to know. Just accept the needle and all will be well. And again, it's just this soft dictatorship. Alrighty, so let me just do this and do this. All right. Okay, Dorian is drenching the Carolinas. Apparently, it is now running right along the coast of North Carolina. It will eventually put out to sea a little bit later tonight. But this was a bad one. They're only just now starting to get photos and videos out of the Bahamas. The place was just scraped bare, absolutely scraped bare. And I feel bad for them. And it's just, well, it's a natural disaster. And the fact of the matter is that wherever you live, there's going to be something like that that can happen. And you should be prepared for it. I mean, when we were living in Hawaii, it was volcanoes and tsunamis and hurricanes. People in California, they're dealing with earthquakes. Here in Indiana, they've got tornadoes. So you have to basically do an assessment of your situation and prepare for it. Be prepared. Motto of the Boy Scouts, be prepared. Okay, more about the social credit score. And I find that terribly, terribly intrusive. I really do. Because it basically says that if you're not behaving exactly like the people who are doing the social credit scores behave, that you're going to be in trouble. And the problem with that is we're all unique individuals. And we're already in a situation right now. Somebody did a poll and discovered that 70% of college students who are conservatives will not talk about their politics because they're concerned it will adversely affect their grades. And that is a far cry from college as I knew it, where everybody was allowed to express their ideas in a free and open forum. So apparently Amazon Echo and Apple Watch are going to use the social credit score to determine who can buy a gun. We knew they were going to tie that. But again, the system isn't going to work. This guy down in Odessa wasn't supposed to have a gun. He'd already been banned from having a gun, and he still got one. Anyway, apparently Trump is moving forward with his plans to keep 8,600 U.S. troops in Afghanistan, America's longest-running war outside of Korea. We're stretched too thin all across the globe. Another little story here. Veterans have finally turned on America's endless wars. I think after a while that would definitely happen. Jussie Smollett is back in the news, and his lawyers have come out with this really kind of bizarre rationale for why Jussie Smollett should be allowed to just go free. They're saying that even if Jussie Smollett lied about being attacked in a hate crime, the police are at fault for believing him and taking him too seriously. The police should have known it was a hoax. The bit out there here. And so, yeah, the Trump administration is considering the social credit score system to determine who can buy a gun. They'll spend a lot of money. They'll disarm a lot of law-abiding citizens. And the crazies will get through. And if you really think about it, mass shootings are actually a very rare occurrence. I mean, they're certainly fanned out by the corporate media. Oh, look, we've had a mass shooting. Oh, it's horrible. It's horrible. But what about this, 24-car pileup over here on the freeway? Ah, that's nothing. Okay. How about this stabbing death over here? Nah, we don't know what to do with that. How about this doctor who was deliberately poisoning his own patients? Ah, well, maybe a little interesting, but we want blood. We want bullets. So they're coming for the guns, as it were. Anyway, as I was saying before, wherever you live, there's going to be something that could cut loose and seriously inconvenience your life. And back in 1815, there was a volcanic eruption that actually blocked the sun for an entire year, causing global crop failures and famine. And of course, it's only a matter of time before it happens again. This was Mount Tambora in Indonesia. And it was 100 times stronger than the eruption at Mount St. Helens. A lot of people still very, very nervous about Yellowstone, which apparently is rumbling and grumbling deep underground here. And again, the lawyers for Giselle Maxwell, Epstein's madam, are saying that hundreds of names will be revealed in the upcoming records dump. Everybody is getting nervous. I agree with that caller yesterday. I'm surprised Maxwell is still alive. I really, really, really am. Okay. By the way, the phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. We had a caller in yesterday who was talking about how India and Russia are ditching the dollar. Now, this social credit score thing is really getting out of hand. And apparently, the Department of Homeland Security's Customs and Border Protection Agency is now saying that it can legally access your phones and computers at ports of entry to determine if there's any subversive content which might impact on national security. Now, of course, subversive content, that's a subjective designation. What's subversive to one person may not be subversive to another. But apparently, those seeking entry to the United States can be turned back, put on an airplane back to their country of origin, based on how a border control agent perceives what he sees on the electronic media. Good reason to make sure those darn things are erased before you get on that plane here. Yeah, Biden keeps doing more and more of these gaffes. I think he's self-destructing. All right, we're going to take a phone call now from Mark in North Carolina. Aloha, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. Glad you were successful in your move. Okay.
Yes.
Hope everything goes good. Hey, listen. I'm talking about this social credit garbage now. That even Alex Jones called for Trump's impeachment if he pushes this, and I agree. I hope these people who keep on saying just go with the plan and think that Trump is on our side, whoever us are, understand that this man is a liar.
Yeah.
At best, you can say the gutless worm, okay, who caves into whoever puts leans in it a little bit. I think his daughter basically is pushing him on this.
Yes.
This guy is a disgrace as a president. He's a disgrace as a human being. All right. And I think these people who are looking up to him and even trying to hold him metaphysically as some kind of a god or something like that, these people ought to have their head examined. Now, if he tries to pull something like this, first of all, this is completely unconstitutional. This is a private company, yes. Monarchy. Now, I just want to say something. Anybody who still has Alexa on, I disconnected mine already. You got to be crazy. The other thing is, if you get an Apple Watch, you got to be nuts. All right? I keep my phone in the other room when I go to bed, when I go to sleep. I don't take it with me all over the place. All right?
Yep.
For various reasons. One, radiation purposes. I don't think it's good for you to have it on your body at all times. I don't trust, like I said, I don't trust the government. I don't trust these tech companies who need to be broken up. And people who go and say that, oh, well, it's their private company. I don't care if they're private or not. First of all, I'm not a libertarian. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I believe at times there is a need for interference with these companies. I believe they need to be broken up at times. Teddy Roosevelt understood that years back. FDR understood that also. And even Eisenhower understood it. So, I mean, this nonsense that they should be able to get away with what they want to get away with is absolute garbage. They need to be broken up. And we need to get people in charge in this country who know what they're doing. Now, again, I'm still supporting Tulsi Gabbard. I understand now she's 8% in Iowa, despite the fact that they're keeping her off the debate stage. I think people are getting wise to the fact about her being pushed off the debate stage, and I'm sharing everything I can about her. The radical independent, this guy who's just what he says he is, a radical independent, is pushing her very heavily right now on online, and of course YouTube is giving them a hard time. They're demonetizing them and everything else. It's not just doing it to conservatives. They do it to anybody that doesn't go along with the program, like the people like Jimmy Dore. They're doing it to. They're doing it to another very big supporter of Tulsi, Nico House. They serve the establishment. They serve NATO. This is why the Atlantic Council is behind them, right? They're part of the military-industrial complex, and people got to understand it. And we need to take a stand, and we need to make Trump understand he will have zero chance of getting reelected. Zero chance if he pushes this thing. I believe he'll probably back down at the last minute because I think he wants to be reelected. What concerns me is if he does get reelected somehow, that he might all bets might be off at that point. He knows he doesn't have to worry about being reelected again, and there's no telling what this clown will do. This guy is bad news. People are going to understand. This guy is way too ever be. Huh?
He could be a real loose cannon on deck during his second term.
Yeah, absolutely. But unfortunately, the Democrats are so bad. I just don't know. So I don't know what to do as far as that goes. The only hope I see is Tulsi, or possibly, now I'm hearing some possibility of Jesse Ventura uniting with, what's her name, Cynthia McKinney, and forming a third party there. Now that sounds promising. Those two would be excellent. Okay? Yes. You're not too far left, you're not too far right. They're right there. They both believe in the Constitution, and they're both strong in the Second Amendment, too. So I really think that would be, some kind of a hope for us. But I don't know, Mike. I'll leave it to you. You know what I mean? You know more than I do.
I really do think the only way we're going to get out of the current mess is for the whole thing to come crashing down. There's simply too much corruption, too much greed, and everybody who's inside the system, everybody who's inside the deep state, they're going to fight tooth and nail to keep things going on exactly the way they are right now because it works for them. And I know there's a lot of talk out there about armed revolution. I don't agree with it. But on the other hand, I don't see this country able to go on the way it is. And we're either going to have an economic crash, which will lead to a social dissolution, or we're going to actually get into a shooting war with somebody that we are going to lose. And I know the logic behind the military-industrial complex is we're going to spend a bunch of money and we're going to have a bunch of impressive-looking weapons and nobody will dare mess with us. But the bottom line is at some point somebody just might. And as soon as they realize those weapons really aren't as good as they look or cost, it'll really be on.
If they push us too hard, Mike, I think there will be. They'll almost surely be a civil war because the American people. You're now in Middle America. You're no longer in Hawaii. I know you know that. It's totally different. Totally different philosophy. People are. This is Middle America armed to the teeth. Not going to
well, I really have not had a chance to talk to too many people around here just yet. Although I'll be very honest, I went down to this liquor store, and the signs all over the outside were just funny as all heck. They had one that said, "Our hurricane plan: Step 1, grab a beer. Step 2, run," and all kinds of other things about 911 takes half an hour to get here. The speed of a 357 is, 4,000 feet a second. And just all that kind of stuff.
That's the way it is in this state, too. And actually, more even, I think, of a gun culture and more conservative even where you're living in Indiana. So, like I said, they better, people need to get ready, prepare. like I said,
Yeah,
stock up on
I
things.
agree. Okay, Mark, I got to let you go. Got to take a break for commercials. Got another caller waiting on the line. We'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones to Paulus in Buffalo, Wyoming. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha. I'm a first-time caller, monthly donor to RBM, and I wanted to say this is the anniversary, the one-year anniversary of when I started listening to you. It was September 5th of last year. I just noticed that when I called in and had the idea to call in. This is the first time I've ever called in to you or any other radio station ever in my life. I'm 70 years old. And
well, happy birthday.
I'm probably a bit nervous. But what I wanted to talk about, I wrote some notes down because I am nervous. But I wanted to speak to you. I've been wanting to tell you for a long time about Walter Russell.
Yes.
And then secondly, some new trends I've seen with Trump regarding the wars in central banking, which are really interesting. You know, back in the 70s and 80s, I did private intelligence for the LaRouche organization. I'm sure you've heard of him. He passed away.
Oh, yes, I have.
Earlier this year, I did security for him and worked with him in a lot of campaigns during the Carter administration and Reagan administration. And what we knew then, people are waking up to now because of people like you. I couldn't really talk to anybody about what I knew outside of that organization. And by the way, I'm not with them anymore. I haven't been for, since 1985.
Okay.
But anyway, Walter Russell. Hardly anybody has ever heard of this guy. But, you and your wife, Claire, remind me of the ethics that the Russells meaning Walter Russell and his wife, L-A-O, Russell, which they practice. And it's so pertinent to politics and economics today. And, you have the kind of character that we need in our public servants today. If we had a meritocracy that I've heard you talk about before.
Yeah.
Hopefully, that's not too far off into the future. Let's be positive. But anyway, Walter Russell has been a catalyst for positive change and development in the quality of my thinking. And I've noticed that you've been a little bit down for quite a while because I know you've been under so much pressure moving from Hawaii.
Yep.
And even before that, everything you're doing, again, is so much appreciated. But this guy, and you being an atheist, would be particularly intrigued with the accomplishments that this man had. He lived from 1870s to 1960s.
Okay, Paulus, I got to put you on hold. We got to take a break for station identification. We'll be back with hour number 3 after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Hour number 3. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. We're talking with Paulus from Buffalo, Wyoming. We're talking about Walter Russell and specifically about Walter Russell, who's the philosopher, talking about the electric universe, and not as opposed to Walter Russell, who was an impressionist painter. So I'm familiar with the concept of the electric universe, and the one problem I have with it is to make the electric universe work, they simply throw out Newtonian physics, and it's not like physics can just get turned off with a switch. So I do have my doubts about the validity of Walter's work.
Well, he not only was involved in science, but he was an impressionist painter as well. He excelled in fields of he was a musician, a composer, an author, an architect, a painter, a sculptor.
Yeah.
He hung out with Mark Twain, Nikola Tesla.
Yep.
He raised and trained Arabian horse stallions. He rode horses with Teddy Roosevelt.
Well, so did my grandfather.
For Franklin Roosevelt. He's just an amazing character. Anyway, I'm doing his home study course, which is really the pinnacle of his literary achievements and his science achievements. He was awarded a Doctor of Science degree, and he never went to school. He dropped out when he was 7. But anyway, I'm enjoying reading him so much. I think you and your listeners would enjoy him. It's kind of like sitting down with a Leonardo da Vinci or a Shakespeare or some other genius of the past and having an opportunity to get into their mind and see how they think and how they develop their genius. You know, like having a role model. That's what it's like for me.
Yes.
It's amazing. Anyway, regarding Trump, I pretty much, like you, gave up on this character.
Yes.
To really make any changes to the status quo of the presidency of the U.S. corporation. You know it's that.
Yeah.
And the deep state and shadow government, and, you know, they're different. The shadow government, in my opinion, is the most recent involvement of Bush's Vice President Dick Cheney, although it was there before that in the whole Department of Intelligence organization, all the CIAs and that. And then the deep state being the morphine of the Roman Caesars, who you talked about,
yes,
into the Holy Roman Empire, the Vatican City of London Rothschilds, British royal family, and then throw in all the secret societies like Skull and Bones Masons, Jewish Chabadlovich, however you pronounce that, and more. Anyway, I've noticed that the global flashpoints like North Korea, Venezuela, Syria, Afghanistan, and even Iran, they've been fading a bit over the last few weeks. Even though Bolton, you know, he's still there, and Pompeo, they're still there. Secondly, Trump has been making some statements about the Fed that have totally blown me away. I've never, in my memory, have heard a president of the United States criticize the Fed so much. He tweeted a week or so ago, is China's Z or Jerome Powell our worst enemy? That's pretty amazing. Now,
yes,
you know that global banking is teetering on collapse. You know, you talk about, you know, waiting for this to happen. Well, we can't have any economic development until we do something about the Fed. And Trump knows that we have had a bull market. It's been for, 9 years now?
Yes.
The yield curve is now flattening because I do some trading. You know, the 2 and the 10-year notes, they're flat. And there's some distance to the 30-year, of course.
Yes.
You know, Europe is at negative interest rates.
Yes.
And with the election coming up, I just knocked over my phone. With the election coming up in 14 months, and if there's a recession, then it's not going to look good for Trump's reelection. So he appears to be pushing Powell for lower interest rates. And to carry this economy forward because of that. You know, there's been a lot of criticism about Trump, but I'm finding I have to support somebody, you know, like him. I wouldn't have want Hillary in there, and you wouldn't either.
No, I wouldn't.
But do you see these positive changes occurring recently?
I'm seeing
Just
changes. I'm seeing changes, but you're missing an important aspect, and historical patterns have borne this out before. When we're going into an election year, the incumbent will always exert whatever authority they have over the Treasury Department, the Federal Reserve, to flood the country with money and make it look like things are good to win re-election. The problem is once the election is over, they got to start taking all that excess money back out of the economy, and it makes the ultimate recession actually worse than it would have been.
Well, I just wonder. I guess it's going to be a wait and see kind of situation.
Okay.
Trump made a lot of promises, and the first 3 years, he was really hamstrung, as far as I can see. And
I just didn't see a strong leader. I just didn't see a strong leader. He was too easy to manipulate. He's too subject to flattery. And yeah, he got manipulated, maneuvered around, but that's because he was a weak leader. I'm sorry. He may look good on his reality TV show, but he's not strong enough to stand there and say, look, I'm now the boss and we're going to do things my way.
Well, if we don't support the good efforts that he's making, and there are some now, I just mentioned what they were, then we don't have anything else. We're stuck with him.
Well, we may well be for an additional 4 years. What can I tell you? Anyway, Paulus, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to let you go and switch over to Jim in New York. Aloha, Jim. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
He's a very good caller, Paulus. I hope he calls back again. Made some excellent points, but I disagree with him on President Trump. I've always suspected he was the preferred candidate of Israel. Not that Hillary would have been anti-Israel, but for some reason, and I'll never forget Netanyahu after Trump won, beaming with happiness. So I don't trust Trump. Just because these vile liberals attack Trump doesn't make Trump good. Right? It's like you could have two mafia gangsters fighting each other. That doesn't make one of them good.
No, we're always picking the lesser of two evils.
Yeah, so I don't trust Trump, and I very much fear his second term. I think he will win. I think they're going to put up a designated loser like Biden. And if the economy is stable, I think Trump will get reelected because I think Israel prefers Trump. But my point I was going to make, yesterday Dustin called, and Tom from Florida, who I love and is a great caller, was kind of disparaging New Jersey. I think that's very unfair to blame, quote, blue states. Remember, even California, 60% of them vote Democrat, but 40% don't. There's still conservatives in California, New Jersey, New York. Now, I hate this, and I see a lot. I read the comments sections on some sites. Oh, I hope California falls into the sea, that's infantile.
Yes.
I thought we were all Americans. So for people who are blessed to have been born in Idaho or Montana, solid conservative states, God bless you. But not everyone in California and New York are liberals. All it takes is 51% of a given state to vote Democrat, and you're stuck.
Yes.
Right? Most New Yorkers who I know, and I have relatives upstate and around the tri-state area, they're conservatives. But they're stuck here. They have family here. And I find a lot of these people disparaging New York, New Jersey, etc. Hey, you're born here, you live here your whole life, your family's here. believe me, we hate it. We hate the high taxes and the regulations.
Yes.
But these people making comments about California, even Hawaii, I've heard comments, oh, I hope Hawaii gets nuked. They're all liberals anyway. I mean, it's so childish and infantile. And to me, that reinforces the view that we're doomed. And if most of the people on the alt-right comment section is saying stuff like that,
yeah,
we really are doomed. I thought you would support your conservative alt-right patriots who are unfortunate to live in a blue state like New Jersey or Hawaii. These guys disparaging people in, quote, blue states, there's something wrong with them. There really is.
Well, it's the same mindset as street gangs, the Crips versus the Bloods. It's exactly what it is.
Yeah, I mean, even California, but at least conservatively, 35, 40% vote non-Democrat. Of course not that the Republicans are much better.
Yeah.
So to say, all you patriots, what about your brothers, your patriot brothers in California? And you're wishing them to fall out into the ocean. What's wrong with these people? That's your alt-right? Oh, my God, pathetic.
Well, I think it's easy for them to say that because they know it's not really going to happen.
Yeah, and of course some could be tongue-in-cheek or being facetious, but, I'll give them the benefit. But there is something wrong with that mindset that, state versus state. And I think Dustin's right. New Jersey's a beautiful state. 40% of the people there are conservative, middle America. And it's infantile and it's annoying. Another thought I had a thought. Now there's talk of with all the what I think are fake gun shootings, but we'll save that for another day. This talk of gun confiscation.
Yes.
You can't have it both ways. I think the quote people of power. You can't be having gun confiscation on middle America and at the same time have a war with Iran. Think about it. You can't do it both. Middle America, patriotic America, they're the ones who are suckered into these wars.
True.
So if you want, I'm sorry, what?
I said true.
Oh, yes. You can't be confiscating people's guns and at the same time try to rally them into a war with Iran. So that's the dilemma they have. Of course, as an element that wants both.
Well, the way they can make it work is simply say, we're confiscating all of your guns. If you really want to play with a gun, join the army.
I never thought of that. That's very, very powerful point. Yes. Yes, but they can't sell that. So I think your quote gun rights, at least on a national level, will be safe. And I think it's kind of a divide and conquer technique. I don't think they're going to do that, at least now. In 10, 20 years, probably. But how are you going to
I don't think they have a clear plan. I don't think they have a clear plan. I think the reason they're thrashing around with all these things, they're trying to find something that will gain traction with the public, and they're failing miserably.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it can sell, and I think, although if they engineered some false flags, God forbid, but they'd have to do one after the other, and get people in a hysteria, and yeah, they could put a real significant gun control on a federal level, and school season, God forbid, has just started.
Yes.
Let's pray there's no fake school shootings. But again, you can't have it in a war with Iran at the same time. I don't think they can sell it. What do you think?
I disagree. I think that if they confiscate all the guns and then turn around and say, if you really want to play with guns, you'll join the Army, and we will let you play with all really big guns. We'll let you have all the guns you want to play, fully automatic weapons, as long as you point them at the people we tell you to point them at.
Yes. One more point real quick. Mark in North Carolina, who's one of my favorite callers, don't waste your money on Tulsi Gabbard. Give your money to whatreallyhappened.com, and don't waste your money on politicians. On that note, thanks for taking my call, and have a great show, Mike.
All right, well, thanks an awful lot here, and we're going to switch over to Glenn in Philadelphia. And Glenn, I'm going to have to take you through the next commercial break. What's on your mind?
Okay, Mike. Hi. First of all, I was going to say, this is just a subjective perception, but you sound kind of relieved and relaxed. You sound, you sounded very haggard when you were in the midst of your move.
Yes.
I'm sure you're not settled in it, but you sound much more like yourself.
Well, we're getting things done here. I'm trying to take better care of myself, and I can feel that my energy is actually up a little bit today.
Yeah, it's you can hear it in your voice,
and
your manner. I wanted to talk about the Democratic nominees for the 2020 election.
Yes.
Have you heard? I mean, you may have discussed this already. I don't know the possibility of Oprah Winfrey throwing her hat in the ring.
I heard about it, but the last I heard from Oprah herself is she's not interested.
Yes, that was some months ago. But she's embarking on some sort of vision journey or something. I don't know. It's going to sound like a vision quest or something. Or she's going to travel around. I guess she's going to travel around the country, and I don't know if she's putting out feelers or what's going on there. But actually, she's the one person I thought of this over a year ago, and it frightened me so much I wouldn't even speak of it aloud.
All right, well, Glenn, we're going to have to put you on hold. We got to do a break for commercials. Stay on the line. We'll come right back to you. I'm back. And sorry for the delay in getting back here, but I had to take care of a small emergency. And we are talking with Glenn in Philadelphia. So we're talking about whether or not Oprah is going to step on in to the 2020 campaign. There's no question she has star quality, and the Democrats love that. But I don't see what else she brings to the table. I mean, she's an actress. She's a TV host. She's been a moderately decent businesswoman. So I don't know, but I got the Democrats are desperate. There's no question about that.
Well, they're desperate, and she seems to me to be like the one person who could generate a sufficient groundswell of leftist populist interest. I mean, I just picture parrots and lemmings just jumping on the bandwagon, piling on the bandwagon the minute the announcement is made. And
yes.
She, in terms of what she brings, in terms of allies, I mean, okay, so look at Ronald Reagan. He had been a governor and an actor. Trump is a billionaire developer.
But
TV show
Reagan had also been president of the Screen Actors Guild, so he had a little bit of administrative experience coming on in.
Oprah is going to be viewed. I mean, everybody's talking about Biden's gaffe these days. Well, now we have Trump's Alabama gaffe instead of just admitting.
Yes.
I can't for the life of me figure out how that Alabama gaffe happened because he was supposed to be getting briefed on an hourly basis. How can you be briefed on an hourly basis and not understand the difference between the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic coast of Florida? It just is almost,
it's kind of known that he doesn't listen to his briefers.
You can say that again. I mean, I like to support him when I can, but I mean, that was pretty ridiculous. And then instead of, and in terms of character, just, insisting on, as you say, doubling down on a busted flush. He's got to fight and admit, try and say that there was some validity to it. It's like, what's wrong with, how about just saying, man, I really screwed up. Sorry. That might have been more impressive. But Oprah doesn't have a history of gaffes. She's, viewed as being very articulate and in tune with the pertinent issues in the culture. She's going to be credited with being very culturally insightful. I could see her with Pete Buttigieg, Mayor Pete Buttigieg, as a VP, because then you'd have, the black female president with and her immediate subordinate being the white, gay, married guy with, who is, really raised with a communist background. He's multilingual and all that. His father's an academic. I could see that ticket being attractive to a lot of leftists. So it's Trump's going to need. I think the biggest thing Trump has going for him is that people perceive the economy as being better now, more stable, more prosperous overall. Whether or not that is true, I think it's a perception.
And
if people are voting their wallets or their pocketbooks, they might vote for Trump as a vote for economic stability, and say, well, there's this wrong and that wrong, but I am better off today than I was under Obama. So that's the one thing I see he might have going for him if they perceive the economy as being more stable.
Well, my concern is we might see Democrats deliberately try and crash that economy to take that away from him. And again, with this attitude of we don't care how many people we have to hurt as long as we get to be back in power.
Yep, exactly. I remember thinking that a few months ago, and then as soon because that's the noise they started to make the minute the stock market started to go down a few weeks ago. Yes, and that's sort of where they would want to take it. So we shall see. I think that's all I had, Mike.
All right, well, that's fine, Glenn. And we got to take another commercial break here, and I got to take care of something else here. So we'll be back after these words from our sponsors. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And the phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Actually, we just got a phone call in here right now. So let's go to Joseph in Hawaii. Aloha, Joseph. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, Mike, we miss you out here in Hawaii, and but I know you don't miss our humidity right now. It's still as hot as it was when you left.
It is so much drier here.
Yeah. The reason I was calling is because I wanted to just mention something, I guess, in regards to Trump. I know I've been listening to the back and forth. What I personally don't like about what's going on is in my opinion, he tends to be playing his usual negotiation, call it his tactics of diplomacy or whatever. With I guess whenever he plays his game with his money, that's one thing, in his personal business and all his dealings and so forth. But when he's basically doing this dealing with the country's money or the country at stake, that's a whole different story. And I guess that's what I don't like about it, because, the risk now that's involved is not just his own personal finances or so forth at stake. It's the country that's at stake.
Yes.
And that is, when I know that he's, risking these trade negotiations and so forth with that happening, if that doesn't work out, because it didn't work out for him in his own personal doings in many cases. He went bankrupt and so forth.
Yes.
But, with the country, we can't, in my mind, risk that, those kind of dealings. And that's what's concerning to me, is he's applying his personal game and how he likes to basically, play his game with the money, which what's at stake is not just his; it's beyond him. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Well, no, you're absolutely right. And it's true not just of Trump, but pretty much all of the politicians and candidates who are out there. They're not really thinking about what is best for the country as a whole. They're thinking about getting the votes, getting the big donors to write them big fat checks. And it's really devolved away from the republic that we used to have into this basically outright fascism is what we're seeing.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree. All right, I'll leave it there, Mike. But again, enjoy hearing you, and I'm glad you're back on the air. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks an awful lot here. We're going to let you go and go to Dustin in New Jersey. Aloha, Dustin. I was starting to worry about you. What's on your mind today?
Yeah, I'm worried about myself too. I'm worried about all you guys, and Tom. I love you, brother. I love all you guys. I don't hate you, Tom. I don't hate anybody. I just don't hope you hate me. And Tom, our politics are closer than you think, because I said it before. I'm living behind enemy lines here, and I wouldn't be able to run for office because I'd be run out of town. But Mike, with Trump, that's the last caller. That's an art of the deal style. But the problem is that art of the deal style might work in a corporate environment, but it doesn't work in a Chinese environment. No. It's a different culture. There's different cultures in the world, and this kind of stuff throws people off. And you're not dealing with the United States people. You're dealing with the world's reserve currency.
Yes, you are. And you're dealing with foreign governments which don't see themselves as corporate leadership. And again, I think Trump has severely misjudged the Asian mindset. And I think he's created a mess that is not going to go away before the election.
And Mike, I was mentioning yesterday with the GDP numbers. I mean, that dropped down to 1.7. Was it 1.7? I think I said. China's like 6. If they were at 6.8, they dropped to 6. Say, that's like 4 times more than what we're doing. And if you look at that concurrently, there's no way we're catching up.
No.
Right? I mean, because their tech...
They're an economic powerhouse.
Yeah, but Mike, every year, the thing with manufacturing is it breeds entrepreneurship and more technology as it grows.
Yes.
And they're going to, and with the 1.2 billion people, and then if you look at India's rising. I think they said by 2030, India is going to be the 3rd largest economy. We'll be dropping to like the 4th. Or maybe the 3rd, and India is going to be the 2nd over after China. But I mean, it's just, I don't hate Trump because I voted for him. I said this before. I voted for Trump, but nothing is coming. Like nothing is being done. And then the people he surrounded himself with are the same ones that are part of the old system. You can't, And the other caller said, like Oprah Winfrey. If you don't change the system, it doesn't matter who's in. The system is corrupted so bad that it doesn't matter who the president is. It doesn't matter if Tulsi Gabbard gets in or Oprah Winfrey. My God, we had Trump and Hillary Clinton. That's what we've come to. Trump versus Hillary Clinton. And what's changed? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. We have the illusion of change. But nothing's really changed, right? The people are still coming over the border. The only wall, I know they allocated $600 million for wall construction, right? But I'd like to see that happen because the only wall being built is the one that's being replaced for the old wall. So, I mean, there's just nothing happening. I could be wrong. I mean, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. I'm a human being. But, I mean, like you said, no election changes. And Mike, every year the demographics are changing in this country, and we know where that's headed.
Yeah.
So that's all I got to say, Mike. I still don't think Trump is gonna do what he said he's gonna do because, I know Tom says he's waiting for the arrest. So am I. I'm waiting. Remember Sean Hannity said in February or something, the indictments are coming. And Bill Barr, do you think Bill Barr is going to do anything? That dude is part of the establishment.
No, the Inspector General recommended the arrest and charging of James Comey, and AG Barr said no.
So you know where his bread is buttered, basically.
Yes.
They're not going to do anything. And like I said, Trump surrounded it. Trump has put these people in, okay?
Yes.
You know, like from the Bush era or the Clinton era or whatever era, they're the same people for the same old stale system.
Yep.
You know, and that's all I got to say, Mike. Have a good night.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Now, here's an interesting little development. Apparently, Vladimir Putin made an offer to the United States to sell the United States Russia's already existing hypersonic weapons. And he said this would be, this would balance everything. We would all have the same weapons. Nobody's going to pull the trigger. And, we can certainly use the money. But apparently Trump said no, because he's convinced the United States can develop their own versions of hypersonic weapons that are going to be better, faster, certainly more expensive, even though they're way, way behind. And again, if the U.S. doesn't buy Russia's hypersonic weapons, I suspect other countries will. And that's going to be a bit of an issue here. Now, getting onto the economic news here, we're talking about all these indicators of coming recession. And there are two camps. There's one camp that says the signs are obvious, recession is coming next year, it's going to be really horrible. Then you have the other camp that says, no, Trump's got it under control, and everything's going to be fine until after the election. But there's one indicator that people are starting to really look at, and that is the wealthy people of the United States have stopped spending. They're not buying the luxury goods anymore. They're not taking the big, long vacations. They're not enlarging their homes. They're hunkering down and hanging onto their cash positions. And that, to me, is a very, very worrying sign. Okay. Apparently, China is bullying the South China Sea waterway. All 10 countries from ASEAN are joining the maritime naval exercises as a result. Basically what you have is you have all these little countries all around the South China Sea who are all saying, no, 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 those islands belong to us. And so they're basically putting together a maritime coalition to hold China off. Now, if that's going to lead to a shooting war, that's going to be a problem. Maxine Waters was being interviewed on MSNBC and was being interviewed by Chris Hayes, and came on out and said, terrible Trump was one of Epstein's best friends. You just know that the Democrats are drooling for the release of these Epstein files in the hope that Donald Trump will be in there. And again, it's a classic case of, I don't care who else has to be hurt as long as I get the guy I want to get. So, I already talked about Syria here. And Meghan McCain came out with this weird warning about gun grabbers on The View, saying there's going to be a lot of violence if you take away guns. She's actually, I think, sadly accurate. I think there are a lot of gun owners, gun enthusiasts who will fight back. And I'm not happy at that idea, but I think it's likely going to happen. Kroger has, meanwhile, started asking customers to stop carrying guns in their stores. Kroger is a chain of supermarkets, and in many of the states where they have branches, open carry is allowed. But Kroger is now asking the customers to not bring the guns into the store here. Apparently down in El Paso, victims of the El Paso attack are suing Walmart for failing to have armed guards to protect them. And I think there's some merit there. And, you know, Walmart is taking a lot of heat right now for having caved into the left gun grabbers. And they've canceled gun sales and ammo sales. And global warming is undermined by new discoveries. Well, we've been talking about that for a lot of years. And everybody's pointing to Hurricane Dorian and the other two that are out there in the Atlantic saying, see, global warming creates these storms. Well, they can, but these superstorms can also be created by upper atmosphere cooling. We've talked about that before. And how else do you explain these gigantic storms, bigger than our entire planet, on places like Jupiter, Saturn, and Uranus, where the temperature is hundreds of degrees below zero? Now, this is a little bit sick, I think, and I don't know exactly what was going on here, but apparently there was this U.S. woman, 44 years old, bought a 6-day-old Filipino baby boy online from the 18-year-old mother, then tried to smuggle him out of Manila in her hand luggage. And I guess she got caught on that one. There are people out there just making some really bad choices. Remember Al Gore and his fake climate change graph? And it was a fake. He reversed the CO2 and the temperature indicators, and an 8-year-long court case just ended with the conclusion that this scientific evidence was all made up BS. Now, over in Great Britain, they actually had a lawsuit saying that Al Gore's mockumentary, An Inconvenient Truth, cannot be shown in the schools without first reading a list of at least 10 known mistakes or lies, to be more brutally honest about that. Okay, we already talked about the Carolinas. Okay, this is who I was talking about. Judge Jeanine Pirro says Fox News has suspended her and worries she could be fired. Now, Jeanine Pirro, for those of you who have not been following her, she's a former prosecutor and judge. She's turned conservative commentator, and she was recorded Tuesday confirming for the first time publicly she'd been suspended by Fox News last March after statements about Representative Ilhan Omar's anti-Semitic public comments. All righty. Ted Cruz accepts offer to discuss gun rights in person with Alyssa Milano, and she's already quoting biblical scripture at him. Now, there's supposed to be a barrier, a wall, between religion and the civil government in this country. Over at the Washington Post, they're warning the United States needs more narrative control while the Pentagon ramps up their narrative control. And what they're talking about is we, the corporate media, will decide what you're going to see, read, hear, and think. It reminds me of the old Outer Limits, the control voice. We will, for the next 30 minutes, we will control all that you see and hear. Or was it 60 minutes? I forget. But that's exactly what it is. They don't want you to have any kind of freedom of thought, freedom of investigation, freedom of anything. This is what you will believe because we're telling you to believe it. Okay. There's another scam out there, and this one involves the contactless card data. And scammers armed with only a skimming device and a laptop are showing how easy it is to steal the contactless card data from shoppers. And apparently this has become a pandemic. Good reason to go back to cash. It really is a good reason to go back to cash. Get away from all this stuff. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says Dan Crenshaw's friends have likely abused their spouse. Questions why he would lend guns to them. It's a little bit out there. Stephen Lindman is out there with an article saying Iran's legitimate ballistic missile program solely for defense. And he basically reiterates the fact that the Islamic Republic of Iran has never attacked another country preemptively. It's the leading regional proponent of peace and stability. Okay, we're coming up here on our last commercial break. We'll be back with the last segment of our program after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And we have been talking in recent months about the incredible sums of money taken from you, the taxpayer, and poured all over these defense contractors who are putting out basically garbage. And it's a racket. And Major General Smedley Butler said it is, in fact, a racket. And all right, I got some kind of a message here. It is a racket. It's all about taking money away from you, giving it to the defense contractors who then kick back huge chunks of it to political campaigns. And they'll write these contracts for sub-assemblies of these various weapons into as many states as they can to get the support of the members of Congress. And Eisenhower warned us about this, how this was just going to become this incredible machine of politics and money. And it would eventually corrupt the entire nation. But we have, I mean, the Founding Fathers warned us about a large standing army. We were never supposed to have that. And so what have we gotten for it? We've gotten the Patriot, which is clearly inferior to the Russian S-400. We have the F-22 that they've never solved the asphyxiation problem on. We've got the F-35, which has got this huge laundry list of problems and maybe the most expensive single boondoggle in U.S. military development history. You've got the Independence class and Freedom class littoral combat ships that are so badly done, they're being scrapped. And the Navy's going back to the drawing board. Then you have the Zumwalt stealth destroyer, drivetrain problems, and it's not all that stealthy. Then you've got the Gerald R. Ford. We may have the money to spend on the military, but it seems like we've really forgotten what it takes to build a working military. And if we get into a shooting war with Russia and or China and their allies, I don't think we're going to do very well. And meanwhile, of course, the country's being impoverished. Sometime you ought to go out on YouTube and try and hunt down Eisenhower's Cross of Iron speech. Now, this is not his farewell address where he talks about the military-industrial complex. This was a different speech, considering that he was our supreme Allied commander in Europe in World War II. He became one of our most anti-war presidents in history. And so the Cross of Iron speech was about just how much this is all costing us, and how we're spending the wealth of our nations, the genius of the scientists, and all for what? So we can stand there and say, we've got a mighty military, leave us alone? I think there are definitely better ways to do that sort of thing. Okay, there's the music. Time for me to get out of here and have some dinner, actually. So stay tuned to John Stadmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. We'll be back tomorrow. And I still got to figure out what I'm going to say. Aloha, America, or who's your daddy? So have a good evening.